had 8 apples and Anaya gave her 16 oranges, how many fruits do they have in total? Have you guys seen these kind of problem questions? That is how we teach problem solving to our children. And when they grow up, we expect them to solve global warming, poverty. We ask them to make peace. But how do we join these dots? How do we create genuine problem solvers who can solve things for the future? And do we really need to begin with apples and oranges? Or do we really want them to try something that is real hands-on? Because these fake problems that we have our children solve, do they really solve anything? So me, Meenal the MasterNi, welcomes all of you to a brand new episode of Reschool. And today we have with us a few wonderful guests and with whom we're going to talk about the biggest problem that all of us are facing, which is how do we create great problem solvers for the future? And without much ado, let me welcome all of you to our episode. And like always, we would love to hear from you about the work you do and what makes you do what you do. Any of you want to begin, or do I cold call like a teacher?
Yeah, I would begin.
Okay,
all right.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Bhoomika Jain. I'm the founder of Happy Stack, which is a life skill-based toddler center focusing on independent learning, independent outcome, and thousands of possibilities.
Wow.
Yes.
So happy to hear that.
Hi, I'm Pooja Agarwal, founder of Ridhansh Center of Design and Innovation. And we are a fairly new institute, one of the kind in India, focusing on enhancing design thinking skills of children.
Okay. So happy to hear that.
Hi, I'm Shraddha. I work in the capacity of Associate Director for the Office of Undergraduate Admissions and Financial Aid at Ahmedabad University. We are a very new university relatively, and we are also talking the same language that Meenal just talked about, trying to create the problem solvers. And we are proud to say that, we believe in interdisciplinarity, experiential learning, and research thinking. And I can probably talk about that through the conversation that we are going to have at some point.
Yes. And with that, let's begin with our first problem. More than that, honestly, I'm just happy to have the 3 of you on the same episode, because we have everything from like 2-year-olds to 20-year-olds and the entire range in the middle. So before we come to the wider world and talk about how we create problems, so how we make problem solvers and all of that, let me ask you, which is the biggest problem you have faced in your life, and how do you intend and how did you solve it? What made you, or what skills helped you solve it? What did you rely on? So yeah, and just a note to all of you and to my viewers, we had sent them a set of questions and we had told them these are the questions we are going to ask. Then guess what we did? We pulled a con and we said, no. You are in a problem solving episode, which means here's the new problem that in which you'll be asked completely different questions. So in case you find them fumbling or just wondering what is it that they're going to answer, it is because they've been put on a spot, and that's my doing.
While we were awake the whole night trying to figure out, decode those questions, here we are. Well, that's a very good question that is also making me think that, is there something like this? Now, when I think about it, I fail to quote on one situation and say, oh, this was the really eye-opening situation for me where I learned a lot. I think for most of us, every day is bringing new challenges to you, and that's the beauty of the kind of work that we do, and that keeps us going, Otherwise, we'll be like done with the monotony or the monotonous of everyday lives, right? It's a challenge that keeps us going. And I think what I've realized over the period of time with these challenges is that what matters the most in this life is not just the IQ, but EQ, how do you manage your emotion? How do you manage the emotion of the other person who's walking with you, right? What I have understood over the period of time is if you, walk alone, you can walk faster. But if you know how to walk with people, you can walk for as long as you can or as you want.
You can go farther.
You can go farther. So not the problem that I can pinpoint on, but I think the learning from here and there little big problems in life is that there is a solution to everything. Think mindfully, think rationally, ask for help. There is nothing like I can do it on my own. You can, of course, but what if you had various people, multiple people working with you and pouring in the different sort of perspective,
so
and then you had an idea, you know? Oh,
let me interject here. Can you give an example of having done this, where you chose to ask for help in something that you were stuck with?
well, that's you know, with me is I can always say, I mean, may or may not answer your question. I don't shy away from asking for help. I don't think that, oh, what is she or what is he or they going to think of me if I ask this basic question?
Of course.
My line is always like, as long as you don't know the answer to the situation or the question, it is a significant question. And that question could be anything. It's like, hey, how do you put this formula in Excel? I don't know it. To something like, you know, I am going through this tough situation in my life. If you were me, what would you do and how would you navigate it? And you know, this brings me to one line, which I believe in. I've always heard growing up that, you know, your colleagues are not actually your friends, and, you know, it just doesn't work that way. I say, yeah, I agree with you, because your colleague is your family. How do you navigate the world without them? I don't know. So for me, they are my family. I go to them for minimal problem like, hey, I'm not able to, you know, roll this out. How do I do this? To something like, you know, what should I cook tonight? I mean, tell me, I'm struggling. They're like everything. That's how I navigate.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah.
So
going along with her, I would say that yes, absolutely, challenges are going to come along every step of the way. And I think what I have believed in is, one is believe in yourself, collaborative learning, and that's what we really focus on, and we really believe in teaching students to work in a collaborative manner.
Okay, I'm going to play the MasterNi once again.
Yes.
And could you just tell me about one specific, some anecdote, some story which tells us what does problem solving in real life look like? Because while all of us talk about these things, what happens is we're unable to make these connections of saying that this is how problems are solved. This is how issues are addressed and all of that. So if you have anything of that sort. So,
I mean,
yeah.
I think the entire idea of Happy Stack came when I was in the most vulnerable situation in my life, wherein I was the so-called great teacher. She's the best teacher. She makes connections with the kids so well.
All right.
In my schools that I have worked with. And one fine day, I was asked to take webinars because the pandemic came along, and I had a screen in front of me where I could just see myself and I could not see kids. That same day, when I figured that this is the only way to connecting to kids and only way to teach, I started taking webinars, and this was pan-India. So people from Bangalore, Mumbai, and kids and parents and the whole family is sitting in front of that screen and singing songs with me, doing different understanding of tunes and rhythm. And every morning I would wake up with a lot of anxiety, considering that what if? Because you know, you would always see that number who joined you, and then there will be like some numbers dropping, and then your confidence drops because you don't know what's happening, because you don't even know somebody to judge. At the same time, there was this small comment section that we had in webinars, which would like, oh, Rihanna loved this, oh, Nivan loved the song. And I used to feel motivation, but that whole up and down kept going on for a really long time, till one fine day I decided to just quit.
Have had enough of this.
I've had enough. I can't do this. I need real kids. I need that vibration. I need kids around me. And that's when I took a short trip. I travel all the way outside in the outskirts to find network, because it was my session. I go, I put up an iPad, and I get to know that the session is cancelled. Now it's me, this host who is a German, and the driver who took us there, and we are three of us in there. She's like, okay, you know, let's just spend some time here. And she sees me all sweating, and she's like, what's going on with you? And I said, you know, I'm just done. This is my last month I'm serving. I want to quit this. And she tried to know more about the problem, that why are you feeling this? I said, it's just the fear of unknown. I don't know what am I delivering. And that's when she said, hey, you know what? The classrooms of tomorrow are the virtual classrooms. Your child in a college sitting in Ahmedabad is going to be sitting next to a child who's in Singapore, all in the same classroom, learning same things, and your child doesn't even have to go to Singapore or probably to any other country, because on the VR, you are all together in one classroom. That's what we have worked in the past. I mean, she was working in the past on such virtual reality. She said, are you sure you want to quit at this time? Because then things are never getting better. Things are just getting out of your reach. I think she was like an angel in that phase of my life. When I heard that, I'm like, oh my God, pull up your socks, Bhoomika. No way I'm quitting. Because then tomorrow things are not getting back to where it was. It's just getting more challenging. And I think this was this one incident which kind of changed the whole dynamics.
It was a pivotal moment in which you decided to change the course of your life.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yes. So I would say this was one changing point for me as an educator. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I think last year when we hosted the STEM festival, it was a very, very great learning experience for us, where the whole idea was putting students of different schools together into teams, because inter-school competition is very common, but when different children from different schools come together and form a team, and then they are made to work together, that's where the challenge comes in. The first challenge started from basically just making them sit as teams during lunch, and they just didn't want to.
Oh, they will not even talk.
And we were like, no, it's important that you also. And the change came in then. As soon as that team spirit built in, they started working, and the next day you should have seen the deliveries that came out was brilliant, because the teamwork and the collaborative learning counted more than just being from different schools.
Yeah, true. So, from what I understand from everything that you've shared, problem solving is not something that you do in the moment. It is not this artificial space where you are adding up apples and oranges. It's a consistent effort. It's something that that requires your whole being, and it requires you to truly connect with the problem at hand and all. So, in such a situation, my next question to you guys is, can problem solving really be taught, or is it an innate skill? Is it something that you only acquire from the environment, or is it something that you can teach formally? So yeah, and examples of you guys having done something.
I think the only way, there is no set way to teach problem solving, but I think it's a way of trying to figure it out and inculcating in everything that you do. Maybe in our classrooms, in our school, in our talk or whatever, before we kind of succumb to the idea that, yeah, this is how it is done, how about we always asked or started with the question like, why? And focus more on what did you learn to, how did you come to the solution, right? What's your opinion on this, right? And especially when in a classroom kind of situation, I think it's more about, encouraging people to ask question.
So what you're saying is that problem solving is basically context gathering. It is it begins with this idea of understanding the whole thing rather than just saying that, oh, here's a problem and go and solve it.
Yeah, kind of begins with a curiosity and kind of giving that encouragement to this curiosity that, you can ask why. You are encouraged to ask why. And that also happens for the problem solving things as well. I always believe that you need to play around with it for some time before you come to the conclusion. That's when we think you need to think about it enough to be able to, or capable enough to ask the right question, right? I think that's what it is kind of for me, inside the classroom and outside the classroom as well. Everything begins with why.
Yeah. Simon Sinek wrote the entire book, Start With Why.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So it does start with why. Yeah, what do you have to say?
Yeah, so I absolutely agree to what she's saying. So we absolutely practice very highly, where students are encouraged to think why they are doing and what are they doing and how are they doing it. So these three questions have to go along it, enhancing their presentation skills. So that is why I think communication skills, presentation skills are now inculcated as part of growth and learning from day to day, where they are encouraged to think why they are doing what they are doing and answer what they are doing.
And that helps them solve problems at a larger scale, is that?
Because I believe that the questions are all within them. We are just inspiring them and making them think beyond.
So in my opinion, I think the maximum of this practice of solving a problem is happening in the early years. I think, of course, a child is a child. He has a brain of 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, And being a mother or an educator, I always ask even my own team and my mother friends that do we have time? Do we have that time to let a child solve that problem? Because I think
Oftentimes we are just rushing.
yes, I mean, I think if my child spilled water, the first thing that comes out is, "Acha beta jao kapda le aao, clean kar do."
Haan.
You know, that's the first thing that comes out
No,
for
no,
anybody.
The first thing that comes out is, "Aya didi."
Clean it up,
Please
yes.
clean it up.
Correct, correct. And this time, since I have a lot of time, I have a lot of time for my child. Even if he's taking 15 minutes to wear his shoes, I have a lot of time for my child. So he looked at the water, he looked at me with little fear, thinking that I might, react. And I'm like, oh. I would just make that sound, oh. So then he knows there's a problem. And then I was like, Droy, ye pani ka hum kya karenge? So Droy is thinking, my son, I'm so sorry, yeah. And he's thinking, and he rushes inside, he takes a spoon. With a finger, he's collecting that water in the spoon and he's putting it in the flower pot.
Wow.
I mean, I would have never thought of this. I would have not even waited. I mean, the minute he took that spoon in his hand, I would have been like, no, the idea is just a cancel. But I think I waited. I have all the time, as I said, for my students, for my child, I have all the time. And I saw him doing that, and I think that gives me a lot of confidence. I think for today's, I think this age group of 2 years to 6 years, I think the mothers, the educators, we all need to have time. ज़रूरी नहीं है पानी पोछे से क्लीन करना है, पानी स्पॉन्ज से भी क्लीन हो सकता है, पानी पे बैठ के डांस भी हो सकता है, पानी के साथ बहुत कुछ हो सकता है, बट वो टाइम दीजिए, आई थिंक वो टाइम देने से बहुत कुछ आपको भी, दे विल सरप्राइज यू, आई थिंक येस.
I'd just like to share something that I experienced. My son, when he was 3 or 4 years old, one fine evening we were having this random conversation, and it was summer time and all that, and there was a lot of mosquitoes. So there was just machhar and all of that, and then I'm like, how do you think we can solve for this? I just asked that question, and he gave me about, and that day I enumerated them about 17 different ideas. 17 ways in which we can work to just catch these mosquitoes, and they included some things that were already invented, so like an agarbatti or something where a machhar would come and stick or this or that, but he had that fecundity of his mind. The same child, I asked him the same question about 6, 7 or 10 years later, and he hardly had 2 answers to give.
That's the conditioning.
And I was so disappointed in our own schooling system. My son studies in this school, and I could still see how he's been conditioned to only give the right answer, to only think of that which is possible and censor themselves before even giving it a shot.
Wow.
Well, the 3-year-old was not bothered. Like, मेरे को क्या मेरे को बनाना थोड़ी है. The 3-year-old was so interested in answering it, in just thinking beyond. So, yeah, you're right.
Independent thinking.
The independent thinking, and I think we systematically rob our children of it. But when they reach the college and when they reach her, we expect them to become problem solvers.
I really believe in that it's high time that the school and the higher education institutions work together, and I see that happening. I think we are complementary to each other. We are not substitute. We are not less or more than each other. It's like, whatever, however, whichever way you have conditioned, we see that, and we try to build further upon it. Right? In a way, we can go back and try to rectify the things that couldn't go well in the past, but you can do so much in 4 years of time that you have in your undergrad. But and that's why I feel that we are like, you, us, and you, we all are complementary to each other in so many ways.
I think giving students a chance for failure is the biggest learning that can be there, and being open to it as parents, as educators, for just letting them fail. It's okay. It's okay. And the learning that they are learning through failure, aren't we all learning as we grow through failure? But why aren't we giving the same opportunity to our children?
That reminds me of one line, by somebody that I was watching a couple of days ago, and she was like, I was having this lunch with one of my mentors that I meet 6 months every time, once in 6 months, and he was like, you did not fail. What you tried failed. So maybe sometimes we need to change the definitions.
Yeah. And that
know?
simple distinction, it takes away so much pressure from you.
Yeah.
It makes you, it enables you to see a little more clearly.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
And I
well
completely
put.
agree with you that all of the learning that happens is because of the failure. I think the idea is, how do I embrace in a way that it doesn't pull me down, but to me it says that things could have wrong and being worse than this, but thank God I learned. Now I learned from this, I'm going to go out and talk about it so others do not end up doing the same sort of thing again. You know, so in a way, if you look at it from a different angle, that's also helping you to get a little closer into something that you wanted to achieve so desperately from a very long time. So why hate it? Because the definition out there is kind of something that's a little distorted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And
basically learning through mistakes, I would say.
Yeah.
learning from mistakes too. So like,
Yes.
you know, mistakes also have
right,
a lot of.
right.
So, if you look at human history, we've been solving problems since forever, right? We have evolved because we are essentially problem solvers. Every generation has had its own set of problems and they've solved it and evolved and all of that. So, moving forward, all of you work with different age groups, you work with a different set of people and all of that. What do you envisage as the biggest problems that they're going to face? And what are the skills that our future generation, our children, our students, they're going to need in order to solve those problems? So this is a two-part question. One is, what are the big problems of the future? And when I say big problems, we're not talking about the standard SDGs and all of that. What I'm saying is, what are the problems that you're going to face and you might be able to address at a personal level? And then we're going to talk about, and if you can tell me about what skills will they need in order to solve those problems.
So
Am I making sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think what we face majorly is communication skills.
Oh, okay.
So I think lack of encouragement of communication skills is somewhere we feel the students face a lot of issues.
Okay.
And I think somewhere they lack confidence because they feel they are not open to communication. And I think communication opens a big doorway to success.
It does, it does. So humans have been storytellers forever, right? So communication is how we evolve, is how we grow. So, and when you say communication, Pooja, I just want to understand, you're talking about one-on-one communication, or is it more when they are sort of addressing a larger number of people or addressing newer set of audience or something like that? Like, if
So
you
when
have
they
any
are in their
insights.
own comfort space, obviously they are more than happy,
Okay.
right? But but as soon as they are with newer friends, newer people, or even if they were made to stand in a very small group of people, maybe
They are
just
unable
4
to do
people,
so.
they are more conscious. But I feel we need to encourage them to just speak their mind.
True. And you know, one thing I've noticed on that front is, earlier when the kids were young, they were probably, at least the earlier generations that I had seen, they had this resistance or reticence when they were dealing with adults or when they were dealing with people who were absolutely unlike them. But when they met their own age group or when they met their own like-minded people, communication wasn't as much an issue. As you said, in their comfort zone, they were comfortable. What I've started to see lately is, even when there is a set of children sitting together, they're still not communicating. They're still, each one is on their own device, and maybe they're communicating through their device, which we can't see or understand. I have no clue about that. But I've seen that also reduce. So what you're saying is a real problem, to say that if you're not able to tell what you're feeling, what your day has been, what your problems were, how you solved them, if you're not going to share it with the other human is going to have lesser and lesser interest in you. And then you're going to suddenly drift so apart that you'll wonder what happened and where this loneliness crept in from.
Yeah, and I think over the last few years, what I have learned being with these children and students is, the beauty is now the students do not have any barriers. They just need a little encouragement and they flow. And that's the beautiful part of it.
True. Yeah.
Yeah,
So do you remember the question or should I repeat?
She's like, oh, I'm sure she has something to speak. She's like, yeah, she's
Oh,
going to
that's
speak.
been me in today's conversation. After everybody speaks, I'm like, listen, me.
So I think now, since there's a very transparent structure between me, who's holding this entire organization of Happy Stack, and the parents, there's a lot of transparency. I'm sure you, being the director as well, you'd be experiencing a lot of transparency. So I see that there are a lot of problems that are discussed. So there are some parents who terms not communicating as being shy, for example, or they would say, oh, she's just an introvert, she'll open up eventually. But somewhere I believe I am an introvert, surprisingly, but I can express myself. But if you tell me to talk something about personal, बताओ आपकी life के बारे में, what are your problems, क्या problem चल रहा है घर में, शायद मैं नहीं बता पाऊँगी, because I am an introvert. So I think parents and educators need to understand being an introvert and being able to express their problems or probably share information, share methods. You can do that at any place in this interconnected world. This is like your weapon to be able to communicate. I think this is not the place where you need to take a step back and think whether you are an introvert or a shy person. So with my age group, I would say there's a lot of conditioning, they say that 65% of the kids entering primary school now, they are going to be doing jobs which do not even exist. So, being able to think of what problems they are going to face, I probably don't know. I don't know where will I be, what world will I be in, but certainly for sure, adapt करना पड़ेगा. जो भी आएगा, change आएगा, bring it on. You have to have that attitude to adapt change, to just let it come through your way. Of course, you might take some time, but you cannot just go away from it. करना पड़ेगा, adapt करना. I think we all have adapted to so many things. At my workspace as well, I used to be that same person who would make these documents and activities on a Word document, print those sheets, give it to my teacher, ask them to read and highlight what they like in this, and everybody like, you should work on the cloud, on the drive, and I'm like, no, I don't know all that. No, and I was that granny, I would be like, okay, I don't want to do that, but nahi, ab agar main drive पे काम कर रही हूँ, it's making my life so simple. In the middle of the night, if my teacher has this idea of some activity or some way to solve a problem, she just puts it on the drive, and next morning at my comfort, I'm able to access it, right? So I think being adaptive has made everybody's life and everybody's growth way more higher than anything. So that's, yes.
I think what I'm going to say, I'm going to echo your words, probably an extension to what you just said. I love when you said that adapting is the key, because absolutely, who knew, 5 years before that ChatGPT is going to take over the world, and now another one, so many coming in, Bard and Perplexity, what not, right? And we found a way to navigate it, right? And I think, what I want to add is, I think what we need with the students right now, and with us as well, we're always rushing. That's a problem with me, that's a problem with most of us. We want to rush. We don't have the patience, because there's so much going on in this world. We want to do as much as we can. We're rushing. But sometimes it's a good idea to take a pause. A friend of me reminds me always, you need to take a pause. Breathe in, breathe out. World is not going to stop because you're rushing all the time. And patience is one, resilience is one. You cannot beat the resilience, right? And you will have to understand that the job that you're looking for or talking about right now might not even exist once you graduate and once you go out, might even not be relevant when you go out. So what you have to think is, how do I have that mindset where I know if there is something new, throw it on me, I will figure it out. That's the kind of situation. I hear a lot of parents talking about artificial intelligence in two ways. Oh my God, artificial intelligence. I'm like, oh my God, artificial intelligence. I'm going to see, I'm going to see the flying cars. I'm going to, have an Uber driver who's like, I'm on the wrong terrace. And I'm like, okay, my terrace is this. Get me a flying car. And we are all gaga. At the same time, a part of me inside also feel that I don't know, am I going to be relevant enough when the AI takes over? So what I've understood from this back and forth conversation within me is, if you know how to deal with AI, you will rock the world, in my very informal language. If you don't know how to use it to your advantage, then this is a problem. So I think what we need to teach students and parents as well, that let's think about AI as how do we use it to our advantage. You know, so that's also a situation kind of, you know, that we need to talk about a lot vocally, you know, with the students and the parents as well. They need to be counseled, they need to be talked a lot.
I agree.
And also the parents need to update their expectations. I think no adult I know who doesn't know 1, 2, 3, 4, who doesn't know ABCD. ऐसा कोई बच्चा नहीं है, ऐसा कोई adult नहीं है जो potty trained नहीं हुआ है अभी. But these are like their major concerns that, oh my God, why is my child not learning the ABCs? I don't know anybody who doesn't know it, and I think they will find their own pace to do it.
Yeah, the only thing brings back to the concept of a little bit of patience. And
Exactly,
how
it comes
you look at things or how look at things might be different, but we're looking at the same thing. My way of doing it, I'll come like this, you'll go like this, right? So I think, you know, I completely agree with you, and I always find, you know, this topic very interesting, you know, whereas like how difficult is parenting, you know, you need patience, you need resilience, you need time and all of that, and plus you're a working person, you know, and it's so amazing to hear, you know, this coming from you as a new parent and you talking the same language, that we need this right now with us.
But I think parents are now very open to letting their children explore. I think the only thing that they are questioning or asking is what is the direction, and they are open to learning. So I think it's just a little more brainstorming, giving them a little more explorative space would help them and their children along.
There's a lot more awareness that I see in parents about, say, that I don't know how to parent well, or I need to learn it. It's just that walking that talk. So even if they were to find out that, okay, this is how they want to explore, and this is, I need to let them do it now, is putting it in practice is what is probably the next step. The earlier generation maybe didn't even believe. They were like, parenting, what is parenting? I know how to parent.
Thousands of books that talk about
Now there are thousands of books, so parents have figured out that, oh, we need to do this parenting stuff and we need to figure it out and all of that. So they've come to that level. But when they have to actually do it, it is extremely challenging. You still fall back on your old scripts and on your old patterns and all of that. So, but yeah, one of the biggest problems probably we'll have to solve is that of parenting the child for the future, because the way the conditioning and the way the environment back home, it shapes the world. So, moving forward, I'd like to ask each one of you questions individually to understand the work that, and you can answer from the work that you're doing. So, Bhoomika, tell me something. So, storytelling, music, all of it has a very important role to play in child development and in life for that matter. But how do those things help in problem solving? And if they do, how? Like, have you had any experience of that kind?
For the age group that I'm dealing with,
Yes.
I think storytelling is wonderful.
Okay.
It has worked wonders for me. जब मैं एक बच्चे को बताती हूँ कि बेटा फ्लेमिंगो का जो बच्चा होता है वो जब टेक्स बर्थ, इट्स नॉट इन पिंक कलर, वो बड़ा होता है, वो हेल्दी फूड खाता है, फिर वो पिंक कलर का होता है. ठीक है, जब मैं ऐसे बताती हूँ, आई डोंट थिंक माई चाइल्ड गोज बैक होम एंड रिफ्लेक्ट्स ऑन दिस learning and tells mama that mama, you know. But then when I do it through a storytelling, that the baby was born and saw the reflection in the mirror and saw, oh, I'm not as pink as my mama. I'm not as pink as papa. Ab kya karenge mama? Why am I not pink? When that way, that whole thing delivers, my kids are living that moment. My kids are completely living the problem. And I just don't go to the climax of the story. I tell them, beta kya karenge batao. So this 3-year-old will tell me, ma'am, makeup. Another child will be like, you know, like, I'm like, oh yeah, makeup has solved a lot of problems. So why not?
True.
Yes, and another child will be like, ma'am, he can wear a pink shirt. And I'm like, but what when it takes shower? Fir kya karenge? So a lot of discussion happened, and here actually I want to tell you a story.
Yes.
Another story.
Bhoomika, the storyteller is here.
This is a very interesting one.
Okay.
So I at my previous place that I was working, I was made as a social skill leader. So I was supposed to design the activities and curriculum for social skills. अब social skills was one of the subject जो इतना important नहीं दिख रहा था मुझे स्कूल में कहीं पे, but मुझे पता था that since I am going to be the leading person, I want to make sure that मैं कहीं ना कहीं जाके जो चल रहा है ना important subject उसमें integrate कर पा रही हूँ. And then I see that okay, you know, I'm going to integrate the very next week this question of what did you love about this story? Turns out when I go to the classroom, the story that's going on is Goldilocks and 3 bears. अब ये story में ऐसा है, I don't know if you know about it, but there are 3 bears. It's a bear family जो घर में रह रही है, porridge खाना शुरू कर रही है, porridge बहुत गर्म है, so the papa bear says, चलो let's go for a walk. Walk करके आते हैं, तब तक porridge ठंडा हो जाएगा, and then you know we'll indulge. Meanwhile, Goldilocks, a girl with golden hair, she looks at the house and she knocks, but nobody opens, so she goes inside. She eats the porridge, she spills it over, she breaks the chair, she breaks the bed. और जब उसे पता चलता है that the bear family is coming back, she even runs away from the house. And I am here with the high goals that I want to find out what is the most amazing thing about the story. So I pick one child because that's my rule. I want to have independent contribution to what they think. So I'm like, okay, tell me, darling, what do you think was the best part about the story? What did you love the most about the story? So the child starts thinking and then like, oh, but you know, broke the chair and like, oh, but नहीं वो तो फिर पूछे बिना permission के बिना चला गया था पर. So every time that cute 4-year-old tries to come up with something, पर वो actually negative है, you know, तो वो बच्चा सोच ही नहीं पा रहा है positive. मैं एक बच्चे की बात wait करती हूँ and one child gives up, then I try on another, third, fourth child तक मैं भी खुद सोच रही हूँ कि actually ये story में positive है भी क्या, you know, जो मैं इतना पूछ रही हूँ confidence से, I'm thinking क्या है, so. By the time 4th child came, I relaxed my face and I was like, you know, darling, tell me something amazing about this story. And looking at my face, she had so much faith that there is definitely something positive. कुछ तो अच्छी बात है क्योंकि भूमिका मैम इतना, you know, confidence से पूछ रहे. So she says, ma'am, when the Papa Bear said, let's go out for the walk, the family knew how to stick to each other.
Wow. Wow. My kids are coming to you. My future kids.
I was like surprised and I had goosebumps. And this was like a moment of history, you know, that I'm going to keep going back to this moment and going to keep assuring how much this social emotional skill is so important. I'm going to keep coming back to this moment, this child. Probably 25 में से सिर्फ 4 बच्चों ने जवाब दिया. एक बच्चे ने और एक जवाब दिया जो भी it was something like a boom in my mind. उसने बोला मैम वो घर इतना beautiful था कि गोल्डीलॉक्स को अंदर जाने का मन हो गया. अब ये भी something.
That's also a way to look at it.
That's right. Yeah, and I could also sense a little bit that this was also coming from the kind of upbringing was.
Of course.
You know, where a family tells their child that, you know, family always comes first, beta, you should always know how to stick to your family. I think only a child like that could connect to the, you know, the part of the story and could come up with this answer. So I think, yes, I think you mentioned earlier that the EQ, you know, I think EQ can be developed with such activities, such programs, and you will expect the most unexpected from the kids.
And I think story sticks so much more than your facts and trivia and all of that.
Yes.
Nobody wants to remember facts. Who wants to do that?
Yes.
But you put it in a story and then suddenly everybody remembers that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So, Pooja, you work with, you run a design space, right? And design thinking is essentially a problem-solving framework. Okay, it has these various components of, say, observing, prototyping, exploring, and all of that. So, which part of it do you see the students struggling with most? So, you have students coming from various schools and various age groups and all of it. So, which part is it that these students struggle with at a massive level, and you wish that schools were doing something about it?
So I think my belief that, so we are a multidisciplinary space and our approach is completely multidisciplinary, and I think my belief in that everything starts with empathy is very, very high, and that's what I would like to inculcate in children.
And that's what you find also missing in the students when they come in?
I go, although our first few sessions are always about it, about sustainability, social responsibility, empathy. But then after 4 weeks, when I go back and ask them that what is empathy, is when they are actually struggling to think back. I was like, come on, kids, what is empathy? Don't we all believe here, you all are coming to RCDI, don't we all believe that it all starts from empathy? And then the beauty part is, as soon as I start making them brainstorm or think on it, and the little words that they come out with is beautiful. Feeling for others, doing for others, kindness. And I think that puts a big smile on my face, and I feel that's an achievement.
Okay, great. And Shraddha, you work with adults and you work with the young adults and all of that. And while there are a million problems, and this is a question that I'd also, from a personal point of view, I'd want to understand. Sometimes we ask the students to solve problems which are massive in scale, right? We're talking the big stuff, and we're talking the greenhouse, and we're talking this and that. So is it possible for, say, individual students or people to solve it at an individual level? Should we be asking that of our children, or should we be asking them to solve problems that they are facing right now? That they are, should they be solving problems of their immediate vicinity, or should they be looking at a global scale?
I think the answer is both. You know, the answer is both. And I think when it comes to problem solving, you know, it's one step at a time. You know, don't rush into it. One step at a time, and then take your time to walk around it. Take your time to understand it enough to be able to reach the conclusion. You know, that again brings me to my point back then that I was making, that patience. You know, only if you spent enough time, you wouldn't have been able to find out what exactly the problem is, and find out the answer is in a way that sustains for a longer period of time. That's what we teach our students. See, all the problems that you're facing right now, that will face in the future as well, are going to be very complex. But it's also about, you know, talks about, you know, how do you find a way to navigate it? You know, how do you find a way to have your own perspective towards it? How do you find a way to work in a collaborative fashion, also understand that it's not just you who's playing a role, it's also about the people who are playing their role in own their, you know, different ways to come to the, you know, solution to those kind of problems out there. Now, be it the problem that you're going through personally, or be it the problem you're talking about like climate change or social unrest, or, you know, any sort of problem that you see out there, you know, flooding, you know, farming, or this issues and smog or whatnot.
Oftentimes I see this, and this is something that I notice in the young applicants who want to join as teachers. And one trend we've seen is they want to change the system. They want to talk big stuff, and they want to, you know, create a curriculum for green initiative and stuff like that. But they are unable to solve problems of handling the self, of day-to-day time management, of managing their own work and balancing the demands of a classroom and all of that. So that is where I find a mismatch between saying that you have these lofty goals, and you're probably trying to do a lot more, but it begins small.
It begins small.
It begins small.
Right.
So do you also face that at a college level?
Yes, we do. Now it's again the challenge that keeps us going as well, right? Navigating it every day. You know, but what you said just made me think of one line again, which is like, spend enough time before you start off thinking about the change. You know, that's also kind of the thing with us. Now let me talk about, you know, the university now. We are interdisciplinary, and we are talking about interdisciplinary education from, you know, last a decade, you know, 10 years or 15 years. But still, when students come to us, when parents come to us, the first problem we try to solve is, what exactly is interdisciplinary learning, and how they're going to bring about a change in your life that you're going to see, you know, I mean, 4 years down the line or every day from now on. The problem, the minuscule, small problem that we're trying to solve is how to look at career opportunities from a very wider and different angle. The problem we are trying to solve every day is a cultural shift from marks is equal to, I would say achievement, or I would say good jobs and fat salary, to, bringing the conversation to problem solving, critical thinking, resilience, learning, unlearning is going to be the game changer. That's what future is. That's what you want. That's what employers want. And that's what we want. These are the conversations that we are initially having with them. These are the conversations that we are still struggling with, the areas that we are still struggling with.
Yeah, I think all of us are struggling with. Yeah, and moving to the next segment, I want you guys to ask questions to any one person that you can choose. So I've been asking a lot of questions to you guys, but yeah, you feel free to ask questions. You can ask a question to any of us. So, yeah.
Bhoomika, I have a question for you, right? I try to be that person who is approachable. I want people to walk up to me without thinking once that she's going to judge me, right? That's what I want. But then again, there is a thin line somewhere there in between which you don't want other to cross, right? But at the same time, you want to manage. You want to be that person that, I want them to come to me without any fear and talk to me, I want to know them. I heard somebody saying, tell me your story, I will never forget your name. I want to be that person, right? But at the same time, in our day-to-day lives, there's so much going on, professional life and our personal life, that kind of, you see that playing a role in your professional life as well. Something happened and that's playing a role in your professional life. And you're frustrated. How do you manage that calmness, and how do you ensure that you are doing 99 things right, not just that one thing doesn't lead or, kind of vacuums everything good things that you did, How do you balance that? Because working with kids, it's beautiful. Kids are beautiful, but working with them like day in, day out, these stories are wonderful, Bhoomika. But I'm sure your days where you're weeping behind the curtains, How do you navigate that? I mean, how do you ensure that when you go next day and in front of them, you're like, hi, I'm Bhoomika again.
Yeah.
That Bhoomika that was crying, weeping behind the curtains is like gone.
Yeah.
I mean, she's no longer
Oh, that's
there.
my story,
How
yes.
do you manage that?
I think since travel has helped me meet a lot of people. And I have met people, so I come from a background where I have been conditioned too much. Because of course, parents and they're too old, and they always showed me this is good, this is bad, this is black, this is white, right? Eventually, when I started traveling and I started meeting people from different countries, different places, I used to study with them. When I met them, I realized that doing this is different for me, but it's different for them. It doesn't mean an affirmation when I do, like, how in India,
Indian nod.
अपने हाँ ऐसे वो उसके लिए कुछ शायद और है. और जब जितना ज़्यादा when I met people of different cultures, boom, it made me, I was relaxed. I understood that there is nothing like black, there's nothing like white.
And you welcome the shades of grey.
Yeah, it's all cool, Now, when I see all of this, I want to ask myself just one question, that what is your purpose? Are you willing to do a purposeful living, or you want to live to look great, to be famous? Is that your category, or you want to do a purposeful living? I mean, happy stack everybody knows, but nobody knows me. I think that's where you decide that this is your purpose. And I think everything that you give in for the purpose is worth it. I have been designed by God for a purpose that I bring into the world, and I definitely want to do justice to that. That's my end, affirmation to myself, that I do not want to think what I'm getting here. I do not want to think what others are taking and how is it going. Of course, there are some really bad days, and there are times when kids come crying, howling. They're like, oh, I don't want to leave mamas, and there are so many things, There are a lot of emotions that's going on around me. पर जब एक चीज़ की क्लैरिटी है कि ये मेरा पर्पस है, मैं इस चीज़ के लिए डिज़ाइन की गई हूँ, अगर मैं ये पर्पस सर्व नहीं कर रही हूँ ना, somewhere it's an injustice. This is not something I'm giving back to God. That's how I believe in my life and in my purpose, and I just want to keep doing that in whichever form. Today maybe here, tomorrow maybe in a small village, but I want to serve my purpose.
That kind of reminds me of, you're basically talking about openness. You're basically talking about walking into the conversation without any preconceived notion.
Correct.
You're basically talking about no expectations as such.
Right.
You're basically talking about if you have purpose, you will be much happier, chasing it rather than trying to chase the expectation and the small term happiness.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
what, it's coming to.
Yes. You put it so right way.
Okay, your chance. You can ask a question to anybody you want. Or if Pooja is ready.
I'm still thinking. You can go ahead.
Thinking actually.
Okay, I have a question. I think I want to ask each of them.
Sure.
Because I think everybody will have a different version. So, I would ask you, Meenal, since I want to change the table. So yeah, what would you tell if you have a chance to tell a 7-year-old Meenal if you get an opportunity to speak with her? What would you tell her?
Oh my God. So many things. So how much time do I have with the 7-year-old?
I think, you have a conversation.
Yeah, I have a
with her.
conversation.
Yes.
So I think just this idea of saying that take it easy. I think growing up, I was a little prudish and I was a little uptight in terms of thinking that, as you said, there's right and there's wrong. There's an idea, there's a specific way of living and you have to comply by it. And over a period of time, you've realized that there is nothing like that. Everybody makes their own path, and like Rumi's words of saying that when I was young, I wanted to change the world. Now that I'm older, I'm wise enough to change myself. So just this idea of saying that take it easy. You don't have to, Rome was not built in a day, and you don't have to kind of do it all by yourself. Also, I would ask her to be a little more open to others. If there's an introvert in this room, it is me. So for me, it is extremely challenging to meet new people up front, go out and do all of that. This here that you're seeing me on camera, all of it, this is my safe space. This is where I am comfortable. So put me here in any capacity, I'll be able to do the dance and the singing and all of that, dancing and singing. But otherwise, it's very difficult. So I would have probably asked her to just step out and go and meet other people. That it's not going to hurt you. They're not going to bite you. You're not going to. You are not some Devi Atma who is the only one who has knowledge. You can just go out and meet people, and you will find more friends and all of that.
Wow, this is really nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
So these are the
Do you want to answer that too, Shraddha?
I mean, on a lighter note, I would say do more maths and science. I hated mathematics and science. God knows why I took it in my 11th and 12th. Like, do more maths and science. But then, jokes apart, I would say 7 years is too young to have a conversation
Okay,
with.
maybe 10-year-old for you.
I would say,
What do you?
wow, thanks for changing. I would say, Shraddha, play more because that's your time. Play, go out. Sometimes never to come back. Play. This is your time. This is not going to come back because then you will be hounded by 10,000 things, one by one. Those layers, never to ever go off. So maybe I'd play a little more, do a bit more of mathematics and science. And, and I'll tell myself that, Shraddha, no matter what, you matter. Your voice will matter. Your opinions will matter. You just need to make sure that you voice in a way that people hear it, And, and you don't hurt anyone, the sentiment especially. Physical hurt is fine, I'll be fine tomorrow. You don't want to hurt anyone's sentiment. You want to be that person again that people choose to come to, I want to be home to people out there. That's what I would say, because that's what I'm trying to do right now. I want to be home, that's what.
Pooja, in case
Do you
also
want me to answer the
Yes,
same?
of course.
Okay, wonderful. So I think when I look back and talk to myself, I would tell myself as life is not a rule book. So I think when I was younger, I have lived a lot by rules, and as now I tell students also, and that's what I would want students to learn, I would tell myself also the same, that life is not a rule book. Be more adaptable and just flow.
Great. Interesting. And yeah, do you have a question for us?
So, I think I would ask her. So, RCDI is also a multidisciplinary approach space, and earlier in your talk also you were talking about multidisciplinary approach. So, I would like to know more of your thought process about it for students, you know. What is it that you really would like them to approach in that format, or what is it that you would like to tell them?
You know, I want the students to know that they are not here to kind of pinpoint on one thing and say, I am going to be working for that industry, I'm going to be working for that position and that company. I want them to change the whole definition, say, I'm going to be playing a part to solve that problem that society is facing out there. I think the whole concept of interdisciplinarity is that the problem that you're going to solve in the future, which may or may not exist right now, is not coming from a discipline. It's coming from a society, right? And in order to solve the problem that's coming from the society, you need to look at it from the wider lens. It's gone are those days when you look at something from a narrow lens, right? And I keep saying that to keep evolving, to keep making sure that you are able to find a sustainable solution, you need interdisciplinarity into the picture.
Absolutely.
You know, you need that into the picture. You need multidisciplinary learning into the picture.
True.
You know, you can do so well with the discipline that you have. Imagine if you could marry that discipline that you are interested in with so many other disciplines, what could you have done then?
Absolutely.
Right? So that is something that we try to inculcate. The idea is, I want you to be an independent thinker. I want you to be that person who says, hey, I have an opinion. You know, I want you to that person who adds up to the conversation. I want you to be that person who, you know, says like, okay, this has been working for like 100 years, but here is the thing that I have. You know, that perspective I want them to bring. Because in a long way to go, you know, I mean, the problems or, you know, the thinking or perspective, I think what matters the most is how you think. You know,
And bringing social responsibility along.
and bringing social responsibility along. I mean, you can't run away from it.
You can't.
You know, you have
can't.
to.
And moving to the last segment of it, given that this is a Reschool podcast, here are copies of the book, and you guys can kind of explore it and go through it. And do you have any question that you'd like to ask me about it? It has a lot of visuals, has quite a few
Wow,
pictures
that's
to
a book by
probably.
you.
Yeah.
You know, I had a question for you already,
Oh,
which
okay.
I'm glad I didn't ask before. I don't want to think what exactly reschooling means, although I feel that I know it. But I want to know from you, why would you call it reschool? What is it exactly?
Reschool is, to me, is this idea of saying how we need to look at schools. Schools were made for an era that doesn't exist anymore. The core purpose that schools served when they were designed was to serve the industrial age, and was to create clerks and industrial workers who could do things on a repetitive basis. So we structured, the entire schooling environment is structured around creating people who are obedient as opposed to original thinkers. So we teach everything the way we do, because we needed bureaucrats. The Victorian Empire needed bureaucrats. The large scale, we needed standardization. We needed people to be able to collaborate on the same level, and we needed something, some certificate that tells us, you know this language, you know this much, you know that much. So that is why schools were designed. The two systems that inspired schools was industrialization and the prison system. Mm-hmm. So,
Okay.
quite literally the prison system. Yeah. That's how schools were built. Today, none of us want our children to be factory workers. No parent, even a factory worker doesn't want his children to be a factory worker, right? There are no more jobs in factories. It is all robots and all of that. So, what should schools be doing? As she mentioned, there are very few adults who are illiterate anymore. Fewer. I'm sure there is illiteracy, but there's much lesser. There are hardly any children in the urban space that we all move in where they are unable to speak or write or any of it. So then if literacy and numeracy are not the end goals of schools, what are those end goals? And how do we reschool for that? And yeah, one book that inspired me to write it in the format that I did is Rework. It's a beautiful book which talks about how we need to look at the work environment again, and it's called Rework, and I really loved that book. So when I was putting this together, the obvious name was Reschool for me.
So in regards to Reschool, I want to know what's your take on the educators, wherein how are we able to fulfill the way educators look at kids? Are we able to give that perspective to them that these are not just 25 kids, these are 25 different thoughts or 25 different possibilities that you are facing? Are they really be able to take that position of actually being a teacher? And I mean, of course, I would love to read more about this, but how would you think you can translate it for me, that kind of, yeah.
So I can hear the teacher's pain in your question. Like, I've been a teacher and I know what this is. So yeah, I have an entire section dedicated to teaching and teachers per se. But what you're asking is, how do we have the teacher empathize with those children? How do we enable the teacher to become available for those 25 different souls? Who isn't this unity of called a class. It's not one class. And if you have 25 students, you are lucky. In most cases, teachers have 35, 40, 45, 60 students in a classroom, right? That said, how can institutions and school leaders do that? I think the first step begins, like she mentioned, is with empathizing with the teacher. Right. Because until and unless you have understood the teacher, you have enabled the teacher to be able to voice herself, to be her, to feel safe in that space, the teacher is not going to be able to build that safe space for the child. So if you are looking at the teachers as a singular cohort and not as an individual person, the teacher is looking at her class and her students as a singularity and not this idea of different souls coming together and creating this symphony. So the first step would be that, but how do you translate that into day-to-day things? So simple things like say respecting their vacations, respecting their time off from school, being a little more mindful of the struggles they have back home. Most of the teaching workforce is females, and they are managing their mothers-in-law, they're managing their husbands and cooking and this and that, and just being more aware of it, just being more caring towards them. So once you begin as that is when they will reciprocate. And that is when they go out, and the way you deal with the teachers is the way they deal with the children. I've seen a lot of schools where there are these strict rules about talking to each other. So there are schools that will discourage adults and teachers from talking to each other, because that is how the rumors spread and that is how the problems become bigger and all of that. Now imagine if you have such an environment, that teacher is going to go to the classroom and say that, finger on your lips, no talking, nothing doing, you listen to me, I will tell you what to do.
Correct.
That's what the teacher is listening to, right? So yeah, and there's much more out there.
Of course. Wow.
So as I just opened this one very interesting page opened up for me. Lock tech is no tech.
Sure.
And what do you have to say about that?
Okay, so very interesting. I visit a lot of schools and institutions and all of that, and they will have these fancy labs and all of it, and they will have all kinds of things to display. But if you have to access it, you have to sign some 5 registers, you have to speak to the HOD, you have to do this, that, blah, blah, etc., etc. There are so many layers of before you can reach the access level. So in my mind, if you may have a single computer lab, you may have the basics, but let the children explore it, let the children use it. Oftentimes I see these fancy spaces, but they are just for show. I would rather see an oily, grimy space that children have used, that is accessible, where things are happening. I don't want picture perfect Instagram looking labs, right? They don't just address the needs of the student. And I also share one anecdote that I've personally experienced. I was in college, I did my master's in the UK, and I wanted to work on a personal project to make a video and all that. And I had no clue how to go about doing it, okay? So I had this camcorder and I had the recording, but I had no clue how to patch it together and edit and all of it. But they had a media department. So I went to the media department, and I'm not even a media student. I'm an economics student. And I go there and I'm like, listen, I have this footage and I need to make a film out of this, etc. So that fellow stares at me and he's like, okay, here's a computer, you can start doing. And I was like, but I'm not a media student. He's like, are you a university student? I said, yeah, that's okay. And I used that, all their resources, which were pretty expensive back then, for a good 2 weeks in order to do a personal project. It had nothing to do with even my work in the university. And yet, there were no questions asked. There was no idea of sign this sheet, who used this, ye memory kaun le gaya, ye kisne lagaya, nothing of that sort. So that faith or that accessibility is what enabled me, and I became so much more well versed with basic film editing than what I would have been able to do.
So yeah, that's what I see the beauty, right? How technology opened up your creative mind too.
True,
so, yeah.
but that technology was made accessible by the university.
Right.
They had not locked it up. They not said कि no, जाके अपने HOD से permission की slip लेकर आओ, फिर इनसे permission लो, फिर इनसे permission लो. So yeah, that's one way. Great. And now to the last segment of rapid fire.
Oh my God.
The fun,
Very
the fun
simple.
times.
Okay, one book that changed your idea of education. And if you guys are not readers and not a book, then one person or one talk, one podcast, anything.
There are many for me. So one which is relevant to education is Grit by Angela Duckworth.
Oh,
I mean, I
beautiful book.
love her.
Love.
I love what she's done and she's doing right now. And then there is one more person called Noah Harari. And his book
Sapiens, Nexus.
Yeah,
Yes.
so my favorite was the 21 Lesson for 21st Century.
21st century.
Was,
Okay.
you know, I mean,
Great.
they were like, really made me think.
Rapid fire. Book that changed your idea of education.
So I would say the person, Mr. Matthew Farthing, principal of North Anglia School, Dubai, and his whole thought process on education is what changed
inspired
my
you.
outlook towards design thinking.
Wow.
So this book called Never Eat Alone.
Okay.
And it tells you a lot about how you never eat alone. I mean, that's just it, just not eating alone will open a lot of doors for your life.
I agree.
So this book is, I mean, I don't remember who wrote it, but I think back then, I think this was one of my favorite. It changed a lot. And I don't eat alone. I make sure, even if I am alone in the house, I would make sure there's girls next door joining me. And these are the conversations which are like something you never expect. So
Totally.
yes.
Yeah, I also never eat alone. It's a complete, and some days if I have to, I feel like such a sad
Yeah.
soul. मेरे को अकेले खाना पड़ता है. It becomes like this. In the university, for the first 2 or 3 days, I ate alone, and by then I had invited so many people. My kitchen used to be this meetup space, and people would just keep coming in and all of that. And eating alone is sad. If you could reimagine school in one sentence, or if you could reimagine schools in the simplest of forms, what would it be?
A playground where people can make mistakes and then get back up and run again.
Exploration,
Okay. Somewhere
a chance to just explore.
explore. Okay.
I think a place where we can have people from different age coming together. Somebody having more experience, somebody having more ideas, and they are all set up in the same space. And there's a lot of thing going on there, creating and recreating. I think that would be my idea of school. Yes, yes.
A myth about schools that needs to be, schools or education per se, that needs to be busted, that this is how, say, the society or people perceive it, but that is not true.
Schools will teach you discipline.
So you don't think that's true?
No, I mean, I don't think that's what schools are meant to.
Okay.
They're not supposed to uniform you or make
Exactly.
one another same as.
Oh, we get so many parents who like, ये घर पे बहुत शैतानी करते हैं,
हाँ,
स्कूल में भेज दो. Hello, what do you want us to do?
They're more naughtier in school.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
So,
my.
okay, so schools are not your discipline stations.
Yes.
Okay.
Only for academics.
Okay, schools are not only for academics. Interesting.
Overall development is what I believe schools are for.
You know, I also feel this is from me, it's my observation, could be totally wrong. With a lot of working parents, it's like, okay, my kids I mean, school is responsible for how my kids behave. You know, they are the whole soul and, you know, who are running the show. So anything that I see is out of the box, the first thing that I'm going to question is school. What are you teaching in school? What are they doing in school? I mean, you know, it's like it both ways, right? You work mutually. So you cannot shrug off the onus. No, on school.
You cannot give up parenting and expect the school to do it for you.
Correct. So I think that's what I see quite often.
Correct.
So maybe that is the myth that you need to bust, that school is there to support you, to do things in a systematic fashion, but not there to take over what you are supposed to do. So they are also expecting the same thing from your side as well. So maybe that.
Interesting. And the last and final question. If you could go back to school, what is one thing that you would want to change? So you go back to your school, and what is one idea of your own school that you'd want to change?
I loved physical education.
Okay.
I never bunked my school.
Okay.
Never ever. I used to be that 100% attendance, but in school, not in the class. I wish if physical education
Was more
I wish if moral education, you know, were given the same importance as mathematics and sciences.
Okay.
I think if I would go back to school, I would think a chance to meet more people from different
Walks of
aspects
life.
different walks of life.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to spend more time with my teachers.
Oh.
My teachers were fabulous, but we had so much of pressure and things of the
Rush.
academics, and I think they were wonderful humans.
True.
I think I would want to spend more time with them because I think they groomed me without grooming me in the most fabulous way. So I would like to spend more time with them informally.
All right. And with that, we come to an end of this wonderful episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Wow.
It's been a pleasure, and I hope our children truly turn out to be real problem solvers.
Yes.
Thank you so much, and thank you
Thank you
so much
so
for having
much.
us.
Yeah.